what does it consist of? Well, it's a virtual home for anybody who has and wants to work with like-minded individuals who have passion without any geographic borders or restrictions, right? No company boundaries, nothing like that. We just simply want to share knowledge. You want to learn from each other. You want to collaborate. You want to do more together. So the question is, who is this for? Who is this session for? Who can contribute? Well, quite frankly, everyone. And what is a contribution? Well, there's a lot of preconceived notions on what a contribution is. It's important to note that none of them are accurate, right? A lot of things are contributions, many of which you probably already do today. In fact, don't even know that you're doing a contribution. Things like blogging, attending and supporting user groups, writing documentation, socializing, providing feedback, mentoring, encouraging. All of these things are forms of superpowers that you can use as a contributor within the community. And we're going to talk a little bit more about each one of them as we harness. Now, we're seeing a community shift these days, especially in the last year. We're looking beyond the geographic boundaries that exist with something like simple user groups or having to stick within a local area. And so things that we're going to talk about today is conversational collaborativeness and contribution. So don't be afraid to ask others to collaborate with you, contribute with you. Do it as a group effort, as a team effort. And we're going to see how we can take advantage of some of those opportunities today. We want to think about what is your superpower. So Hugo, help us identify how we could identify what is your superpower.
Thank you. Well, everybody knows, right, that all the superheroes have supernatural powers, but some have more powers than others, right? Some have like every single superpower, while some have only one power that makes them unique. And there's some superheroes who are just normal human beings who have developed unique abilities, often through adversity and perseverance. So as a community member, you too can have these superpowers, right? You may not be fighting crime unless you're fighting crimes against bad design, but you can still do good and leave the Microsoft 365 community better than you found it. And just like superheroes, you don't have to have every single superpower, right? Don't look at yourself and compare yourself against other people who speak, who blog, who write articles, who do all the stuff at the same time. Maybe you're good at only one of these things. And that's okay, right? What matters is that you find out what your superpower is, where you're comfortable. And the first step to discovering your superpower is
being there. Yeah, just being there. So being a part of the community right now, every one of you watching with us, asking questions, you're embracing your superpower right now of being there. So being part of the community. Many superheroes, as we know, they have people that work behind the scenes to help them. So just as we're talking with you all right now, it would be pretty boring to talk to a blank void, right? We need that interaction. We need people to ask questions. So you can ask questions in these groups in the community. You can bounce ideas off of someone else. You can share your experiences and anecdotes. This is a great way, not only, even if this is your superpower you choose to go with, that's great, but it can also be a building block superpower that you use to get into other areas as well. So you can find people like-minded in the community, maybe facing the same issues you are, like having to migrate SharePoint or stuck on how to do this thing in the SharePoint framework or whatever it might be, your Power Platform. And you can commiserate with them and bounce ideas off and work with each other there. So you may not realize by doing this is a good contribution and a superpower that you can really embrace of being there in the community. Another superpower, though, that we have is training. And this is a superpower that I embraced early on. Now, obviously, like if I'm going to talk about my journey into the community, being there was the first step. I was painfully shy. I got out of any classes I could where I had to do presentations in front of people. I would fake sick. I would just come to anything I could do to get out of having to do presentations in the class. That was me. That's how shy I was. And that lasted well into college even, that I was that way. So early on in my career, I struggled with that a lot, and I didn't want to go. It took a lot for me to even go to a user group for the first time, because I don't know these people. What am I going to say? What if someone asks me a question or something? So that was a superpower that I chose to embrace. But the next superpower that I chose was training. So one of the things, even though I was painfully shy,
Sorry.
was I did like helping people, and so I figured I was comfortable with one-on-one, small group interaction and helping walk people through a problem. So training is a great way to help people either on a one-on-one scenario or a group scenario. So that's what I did when I graduated in 2008. The economy just was tanked, and I didn't get to get a job in the field I wanted, in development, in IT. I had to do some data entry stuff, and I found that I could train people. I was eavesdropping on my colleagues, say they're having trouble with different things in SharePoint. I happen to know SharePoint from an internship, so I embraced my training superpower and I just set up some lunch and learn sessions with people and show them how to do simple things in SharePoint and train them. And then from there, that just led to, many other things. So it's a great superpower to embrace. And oftentimes training can lead into other superpowers like speaking.
So if you are passionate about something, chances are you want to share it. And the best way to share it, oftentimes, especially right now where we've got so many virtual events, is speaking. There are tons of opportunities for you to share your passion, show off things that you've created, what you've learned in a presentation. Now, it doesn't have to all start at a high level like an event such as this. That may be a little nerve-wracking for you. So you could start by providing to user groups that are on a smaller level, maybe even internally. Maybe you have an internal user group within your organization that you could say, hey, I want to do a lunch and learn like April had mentioned. I want to show off something that I learned. Could I kind of beta test this with you all, get your feedback, and then refine my session to go promote it and submit it to bigger sessions or user groups. I promise you that many of the user group administrators are always looking for new speakers. Emily runs the Tampa Bay user group, which has just started, always looking for new speakers. Hugo runs the citizen developer or helps run the citizen developer user group in Toronto, always looking for new speakers. Granite State, always looking for new speakers. So awesome opportunities to get involved in. If you're passionate, like I said, chances are it's going to just be like you're talking to a bunch of friends. That's really what the community is. So don't feel like you have to be overwhelmed by the fact that you're going to be speaking. I know many feel like there's a higher degree of fear to speaking in public than there is death, even some of the statistics show. So it's kind of crazy, but it's nothing better than this community to support you. So if you want to get involved with speaking, you can do that. And we're going to talk about it later. We actually have a buddy system that will pair you up with an experienced speaker as an MVP or a PNP team member if you would like to get more involved in public speaking as well. And Hugo will cover that in a little bit. Now, you may say, well, that's just too much for me right now. Another option that you could move to is making videos. So I started when I got involved in the community making videos as opposed to writing blogs, for example, simply because I felt like I would critique the blog and never publish it. Perfection was the enemy of progress. I was never able to get it done. But with videos, I felt it was a little bit more engaging, conversational. I could make jokes that maybe didn't translate well in writing, and I could show it off and slice in things like little movie clips and stuff like that to make it fun. It was just easier for me. And when you did that, it also gets you more comfortable with speaking because you learn the different ways to fluctuate your voice, modulate. You find out that, hey, when I'm standing, as I am actually right now, your voice projects better. So you find out little ways to improve things. And before you know it, your videos are translating into better speaking performances as well. So definitely don't be afraid to make videos and speak if you want to get more involved in the community. This is a huge superpower, and people love little small videos. Little SharePoint shorts, if you will. Those are things that, like, for example, April and I are going to be working on together, little 5-minute chunks. Don't be afraid or feel like it has to be some big, Hollywood production or something like that. Just a little tip is as valuable as a 1-hour session. So if you like that, don't be afraid. Now, if you do like to write, though, our man Hugo is an expert at it. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, I can start talking about my personal anecdote, right? So a blog is supposed to be, it's a short, whatever, it's an acronym. No, it's not an acronym. What do you call it? It's whatever. It's a word for weblog. So what I started doing is I started writing for myself and recording the things that I needed to remember. So it was always like a note to self, right? So if I was trying to find that that function that allows me to concatenate CSS classes from Fluent UI, and I never remembered it. I just wrote a blog about it, and it was a note to self. That way I didn't have to feel guilty about someone saying, oh, everybody knows this, and that's not the only way to do it, or that's not the best way, because I never said it's the best way, it's the only way. It's the way that I do it, and it's a note to myself. If you happen to benefit from it, great. But the cool thing about that is when I started doing this, and I would go to a client and I'd be searching for something, and I would forget that I wrote this blog, and I'd search for it, and all of a sudden this article would pop up, and it would look very familiar because it was the article I had written, and it really became a note to self. I encourage you to do that. If you're concerned again about writing to the blog. But the other thing that you can do is edit, right? So there are other areas. You don't have to be writing your own blog. Maybe you're just passionate about the written word and you just want to share with people, but you just don't want to take on that responsibility of having a blog. So you can actually go to community docs, for example, or the Microsoft documentation, and you can make contributions. And if you don't know how to do that, I recommend that you sign up for the Sharing is Caring session, First Time Contributor, where we actually walk you through the process of creating your first GitHub contribution. So what's another way to contribute?
Yeah, so another big one that we need to talk about is mentoring. And this goes both ways, either being mentored by someone or becoming a mentor yourself. This was really beneficial for me starting out. As I said, I was painfully shy. I would attend user groups and kind of be involved in that capacity, but it took a while and a lot of pushing to really feel comfortable getting to that point to where I would speak or get more involved in the community, whether that's speaking or blogging and eventually doing videos. And one of the things that really helped me is getting some mentors, people that were already involved in the community, that were speaking at events, that were blogging and making videos and all that, and getting their advice on things like, how do I find out a topic that's good to speak on? How do I make a good presentation? And getting their feedback and their one-on-one advice and mentorship. And that's really one of the greatest gifts that you can give to someone is your time and showing them, what you've learned and the tips and tricks that you have to share, and giving them that advice so that you can empower them to become involved in the community and get what they need there. So it's a really, really powerful superpower to embrace. Another good superpower, though, if you don't, maybe you don't want to talk, maybe you hate writing, like none of this stuff so far really seems for you. But maybe you can write some really cool code. You built some, maybe really cool Power Apps. I love the Power Platform, or some cool SharePoint Framework web part, or whatever it might be. Developing is an amazing superpower and an amazing way to give back to the community by sharing the code or the applications that you write with the community so that others can benefit from it and use it and build off of it and improve it and all of that. So that's a really amazing way to contribute. We have the PNP repo there to share all of your code. And as Hugo said earlier, we have sessions to help you get started if you haven't shared code before as well. So great way, and this can be any code, like I said, it could be SharePoint stuff, it could be Power Platform stuff. We have a new Power Platform repo, so you can share cool Power Apps you built, flows, patterns, and all of that. So really great way to get involved and share your superpower. But another thing that goes along with this, so you develop something really cool, but what inevitably happens when you do that, you have bugs. No one is perfect. I was just looking at something that I just shared on the PNP community, and there was a bug that I need to fix. So it happens to everyone. So that's another big superpower. If you can identify the bugs and test the solution and figure out what's going on and sharing that feedback, and then if you can squash those bugs too, that's an amazing superpower, because we need people that can catch the bugs and can help us fix those so that we can all work together and make sure that we have quality samples and solutions out there for everyone in the community to benefit from. And let's see what goes hand in hand with that. Well, so we've talked about developing, we've talked about bug fixing, speaking, and all of that. Well, what if, none of that's really calling out to you yet? Another big one is socializing. So maybe you are really super active on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever social media platform you use. there's people out there in the community creating great content every day, right? We need people that will help socialize and amplify the content that is out there so that others will know about it. Because if someone creates something or shares a cool sample, if no one knows about it or where it's stored or how to get to it, then what good is it? So we need socialization is an amazing and a huge part of community and making sure that people are aware of what is out there and how to get their hands on it. So it makes a huge difference.
Now, what goes hand in hand with that socializing is encouraging, because really, when you're socializing, you're really encouraging. So you can be a little bit more verbose in how you socialize by providing encouragement to those others that are maybe new to the community. One of the things that I did when I first started getting involved in the community is if I was going to an event where I was speaking, 2 to 3 weeks prior to the event, I would go through the collection of speakers and I would try to find ones that I didn't know. And I would actually just go tweet, reference them, make sure you reference them, and kind of promote their session. You're encouraging others to go visit their session. This actually led to relationships that would have never happened otherwise. And it's something that Emily Mancini talks about in one of our other sessions regarding sharing is caring, how that helped break down a barrier. When we first showed up to the speaker dinner, I had already tweeted out promoting her session, so she felt like that was a bridge that gapped the fact that we didn't know each other at that point. And so it's a great conversation starter, and it helps honestly encourage others to get more involved. Let them know you liked it, even if it's just a tweet saying, I just read this blog, it's awesome, I just found the sample, it's fantastic, it's created by so-and-so, created by Hugo or April or Emily, I love it. Reference them, let them know that you loved it. Encourage others to do more in the community. It is infectious in a good way, and you'll end up feeling good about it and wanting to do more as well. But there are times when feedback is required as well. So April, what kind of feedback might be helpful?
Yeah, so feedback kind of goes hand in hand, right, with the whole encouraging thing. But with feedback, it can either be positive or negative. But the goal here is that feedback is always constructive. So even if you are sharing something that maybe is, not the warm and fuzzy, like, great job type feedback, maybe something needs to be improved or you can work on something. If it's set in a constructive tone, that's good. And that's a great way. It's a gift, honestly, that you can both give and receive, because feedback is kind of like water for flowers. Without it, they don't bloom, right? So we need, if we're just doing the same thing over and over again and never getting feedback on what we can do to improve ourselves and our content and what we're doing in the community, then we're never going to grow. So it's really important feedback. This can keep contributors going. So constructive feedback, like, hey, you did a really great job on that video or that blog post. It really helped me, sharing those stories and the impact that it can make definitely keeps people going. I know myself, sometimes you have some negative, you have some positive, but the positive stuff is what keeps us going. Knowing that stuff that we've built, and shared with the community is actually helping people and sometimes even changing lives, helping them get other careers and things is very, very empowering. And that's amazing feedback that you can provide and help nurture the community.
All right. In a world where heroes, no, I'm just kidding. We've discovered our superpowers for our contributions, but now let's talk about the opposing forces of evil, right? Those are the things that are trying to prevent you from doing good out there. And so we've tried to recognize the opposing forces into kind of various categories. We call them stones, just because our lawyers said that we could do it. So we have the space, the time, the mind, the reality, the soul, and the power. Let's start with the first one. The space stone. So a space stone is this thing, right? This isolator that removes your local communities, that makes everything out of reach for you. The isolator often works with pandemics to fight his opponents. And so how do you fight the isolator, that super villain? Well, one of the ways that you can do that is that you can create your own user group. Right, you can remove that local community and that geographic constraint. So create your own user group in your region, or join other user groups that support virtual attendees. You can find a collaborator in the community, and that's something actually we'll talk about later. But we do have the buddy system where we can do that. There's other opposing forces though, aside from space. Let's look at the next one.
And that's going to be the time stone. Now, the time stone has a few different villains within its ecosystem. The first one is the Time Lord, right? Sneaks up on the opponents. Time is always dwindling. That is the one great equalizer for all of us, isn't it? No matter where we are in the world, no matter what we do, we all have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's no magic genie. Excuse me. There's no magic genie. We can't say mecca lecca hi, mecca heiny ho, and make time exist from nowhere. So what can we do to make and combat this villain? Well, we want to have balance, right? We want to have a good perspective. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves, right? So if you've got grandiose ideas, you want to start a YouTube video. Don't say, well, if I don't have 1 million subscribers by tomorrow, then I'm quitting, right? No, you want to try breaking things down into smaller tasks. Start with something small goals, small tasks. It's going to make you be able to achieve it a little bit better. But also, again, the balance is important. Understanding that it's a journey. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're in this for the long haul. And so you're going to have to start and learn and refine along the way. And sometimes that means that you need to be realistic with the amount of time that you're going to spend and know that you can't just do everything all at once. Now, the next part of the time stone is the perfectionisto. This is the enemy of innovation. It can make any task last forever and makes you feel like, oh boy, nothing is good enough. And I don't know if you're like me. I've started out something super excited, super happy about trying it. And all of a sudden I worked on it for a long time and I got to the end. I thought, who wants this? All it does is cure cancer, right? No, I mean, you just start critiquing it so much, right, that you never want to release it. Well, look to others for some feedback. So you can combat that by getting advice from others on the progress, right? So you provide this as a note to yourself, ask for others, as we see on the results slide. In the next one, we'll see exactly how we can go after others and get advice from them to kind of really just balance ourselves out, provide that perspective, because sometimes we can get tunnel vision and that can be a little problematic. Now, how about the procrastinator? It can wait till later, right? We can deprioritize things and whether or not it really needs to get done. We want to go take more naps, in fact, instead of getting anything done. Well, the ways we can combat this: collaborate with others. It's always easy to tell ourselves, I can do it later. I'm only letting myself down, right? It can wait till later. But when you work with someone else, you're a lot less inclined to let them down. You don't want to let them down. They're your friend, they're your coworker, or they're your community peer. You want to make them succeed, so therefore you're going to make sure that the time is there for you to be able to get it done. And then also reward yourself. Set little goals. Hugo always sets a goal for himself and then gives himself a gift at the end of it by meeting that goal. It's a great method in which to be able to ensure that you're getting stuff done consistently. Now, in terms of our mind, April?
Yes, so we have two big villains here trying to affect our mind. The first one is the Brainwasher. Think of the Brainwasher as almost like pre-imposter syndrome. So you're wanting to get involved in the community. Maybe you're thinking about starting a blog, making videos, speaking at events, but this thought comes in your mind. You're like, well, why would I share what I know? There's people already doing the same thing and probably already doing it better than me. What do I have to really offer? I probably shouldn't even try. That's what the Brainwasher puts inside your head. So how do we counteract against this? Well, two main things that we can do to fight the Brainwasher. You have to keep in mind that even though there might be others in the community already talking about, say, the Power Platform and Power Apps and Power Automate, more voices help to amplify the message. And really important to note, your voice, every voice, is unique, and the way that you describe something and explain something can be totally different than the way someone else in the community who's already doing it is describing it. And that way that you are describing it can resonate with a whole other group of people. And this is something I learned early on. I struggle with this as well. I didn't think that anyone cared. There was already the Shane Youngs of the world talking with all these great power platform videos. What do I have to really offer to that? And it was Shane himself that said, no, I mean, you have your own unique voice and way of explaining things. You should make videos and people can have, learn a lot from that. And it's very true. We explain things differently. We come from unique perspective on things as well. So do not let that stop you and help fight that brainwasher. Now, the other one, though, is the antimatter. This villain creates an alternate reality in our brains that you don't belong. Kind of goes similar to the brainwasher, but takes it even farther. It alienates you. It creates these alternate realities that you don't matter. So even if you get over that pre-imposter syndrome and the brainwasher and think, okay, I'm going to start contributing, making a video here, whatever it might be, even though someone else is doing it, and you're thinking, well, no one else will care what I have to say. I don't matter. So how do we fight that feeling that the antimatter brings to us? Well, first of all, consider what contributions you enjoy. Embrace that feeling. If you are really passionate about SharePoint framework and building web parts or whatever it might be, does it really matter if people won't like it? If you're having fun making the content, making the web part and sharing it, so embrace that feeling that you have. Another way to fight the antimatter is to compile that positive feedback that you will get and receive to serve as a motivation. So again, another thing I struggled with when I first started out my video, that this is dumb and it doesn't matter, people aren't going to care. But I did, start getting in some positive feedback, and that helped motivate me that, hey, I guess maybe this does matter. People did need to hear this and from my voice. And then also it really, really helps to have a trusted friend or colleague that you can go to get honest feedback. So maybe you aren't getting the feedback you need and you don't know what you need to do to improve. We all have that friend or someone that we know that can give us brutally honest feedback. Everyone needs that person in their life. So use that to your advantage to help fight the antimatter. Now, going along with the antimatter, right, in the mind, we have the reality stone. So what villains do we face there?
All right, and by the way, if you ever need a friend to be brutally honest with me, that's one of the byproducts of autism. I could be super brutally honest with you. All right, so the imposter syndrome is a villain that if you talk to a lot of people that are out there in the community, like some of the biggest MVPs, some of the even the celebrities at Microsoft, they'll tell you that imposter syndrome is a huge enemy, right? It makes people feel like they don't deserve their success. It makes you expect that, like, I know I joined Microsoft, a couple months ago now. For the first, I still go through that every once in a while. Like every time someone would call me, I would think, oh my goodness, they just realized that I don't know anything and they're calling to fire me, to tell me, yeah, we made a mistake hiring you. We're going to let you go, right? We're going to go ahead and let you go. Now, imposter syndrome is a valid thing, because if you think about it, if you're constantly trying to stay up to date, right? You're in technology, so you're constantly trying to stay up to date. You're constantly realizing that there's more for you to learn out there. So as a result, you're kind of constantly, it's kind of like swimming, but keeping yourself just out of your depth, right? You have to keep on swimming to stay afloat. And that can come across as, or it may make you feel like you don't know anything. There are people out there like Nobel Prize winners that, like Albert Einstein, he didn't understand why people were making such a big deal about how smart he was, because as far as he was concerned, he didn't feel that he was smart. So how do you fight the imposter syndrome? Well, the first thing is know that it's normal. Again, if people like Albert Einstein and other Nobel Prize winners feel imposter syndrome, it's okay. And it's rarely discussed because each person feels like they're keeping a secret. But that's one of the things we wanted to do in today's session, is we wanted to talk about it, put it in the open, and really say like, hey, it's okay. And we actually started collecting videos from MVPs, and you have a. Oh, I thought David was going to step in here. But we started collecting videos of MVPs and celebrities out there who are just saying the same thing. I have imposter syndrome, right? I feel like I'm an imposter. Just to help people understand, like, wow, I didn't realize that this person that I look up to also feels like they don't know anything. Remind yourself of what you've accomplished as well. Keep track of your contributions. Read them from time to time, right? Read your old letters of recommendation. If you've been given an award, read the inscription because you worked hard for it, right? You don't just look good on paper. These are the accomplishments you've earned. I have my MVP award over there, and once in a while when I feel like I'm not, contributing, I look at it and I say, okay, you know what? I do remember working hard to get this MVP. Teaching is another way for you to help understand how much you know. Because if you become a mentor and you start telling people how to do this, you will be surprised how much you know, even in the areas that you're not necessarily comfortable with. And remember, it's okay to not know what you're doing. Consider yourself someone who's learning and gaining expertise in the public eye. Just don't lie about stuff, right? As long as you're enthusiastic about learning, people will cut you some slack. Yeah, I love this. I don't know everything, but I can't wait to find out. Expect initial failure, right? I once asked a photographer, how do you take good pictures? You take such amazing pictures. My pictures are really bad. And he said, well, yeah, the secret to taking good pictures is to take a lot of bad pictures. And then once in a while, out of those thousands of bad pictures, you'll have one really, really good one. And that's the one that I'm going to show you. The author, Anne Lamott, she titles every one of her new work Shitty First Draft. And it's kind of cool because, she allows herself some leeway to mess up at the beginning. And so allow yourself that leeway as well. And you know what? Keep a little of that imposter syndrome in your pocket. There's a fine line between imposter syndrome and egomania, right? Authentic modesty is what keeps you real. All right, so let's go back to those stones.
Yeah, so we've fought tons of villains so far. We've got comfortable. We're going to start contributing, but now we have to face these soul-crushing trolls. There are so many trolls that we have to deal with. So a few that I want to call out here. One, the grammar police. These will critique your every missing comma and misspelling. We have the debater, right or wrong. The debater doesn't care. They are there to pick a fight with you. The haters, no constructive feedback here. They just want to serve one purpose and spew their hate for what you're doing, what you're contributing. We have the creeps. These are my least favorite troll here. They're out to objectify you and make you feel uncomfortable. The know-it-alls, they seek to make you inferior. The spammer tries to use your contributions as a way to shamelessly self-promote. And then finally, the moocher. They want to take advantage and keep asking for more and more until you have nothing left to give. I have dealt with many of these trolls here in my years of contributing. So how do we fight these trolls? What can we do to counteract against them? Well, we can have a tendency to kind of focus on the negative. So we get some of these trolls trolling us here, and we tend to harp on that. But the important thing to do here is focus on the 90% good. From my personal experience, and probably everyone here that's contributed, most of the stuff and the feedback that we get is good. So focus on that, let that lead you, and don't let the trolls bother you too much. So another unique thing though is that depending on the type of troll, right, it might be an opportunity to turn that into allyship. So maybe you have the know-it-all troll and they're trying to say, well, no, you could really do it this way, and this way is much better, and that's cool, but maybe that's an opportunity to turn that troll into an ally. And I know others here have experience with those type of trolls for sure. Ask, oh, I didn't think of doing it that way. Please, explain to me. And maybe that could, turn into an allyship. Another one is sometimes, as much as we don't want to, face it, these trolls can have some truth behind it, and we can make mistakes, and they are there to point it out, of course. So if that does happen, own up to it. Everyone makes mistakes, and move on. Another one, especially with those, the creep trolls and all of that, we have to draw professional boundaries and say when something is not okay, when you get those inappropriate messages. So draw those boundaries and then escalate via code of conduct if necessary. All, communities and user groups and all that, we all have code of conducts that we are expected to abide by. So we can use those to escalate some of these trolls if it gets out of hand. So now we talked about trolls, let's talk about the last stone, and that is the power stone.
Yeah, and without power, nothing works, right? So the power drainer is here to sap you of your power, getting you to work on unnecessary things. But how can you combat that? Well, you want to embrace your passions, right? Just remember what it is and why it is that you started getting involved in the community. Focus on those. Don't let that power drainer rip apart from you all those villains that we saw before. That can happen. So focus on your passions. Always remember that that's why you did it, and focus on what it is that drives you to continue to do more, taking advantage of some of the things that we've already reviewed so far. And once you do that, we move on to the good things. Contributors assemble.
Just like Superman has kryptonite, which only affects him, you may have some weaknesses, right, that affect you uniquely. So, for example, I can't stand seeing myself on video or hearing my voice. So the thought of having to edit a video with me in it just horrifies me. And the idea of submitting sessions during the call for speakers to me is almost as appealing as doing my income taxes. But remember that we're so much more stronger together. So you don't have to have every single power to contribute. For example, I work with David to do some videos and things like that. And David is often the one that helps submitting all the call for speakers. So because he knows that if he asks me to do it, I'll never do it. So again, just like all the superheroes out there, they all have their origin story, but they all become stronger when they become part of a team. And your team is this community. We can help each other. When one of us is down, we can celebrate each other's, we can help each other when one of us is down, but we can also celebrate each other's successes. And when we do that, we all succeed together. So we've talked about the various ways that you can use your superpowers and contribute, but let's give you some tips on how to find your place in the community and start contributing. Oops. User groups. So if speaking of your superpower, you might want to begin in user groups. And we've talked about that before. Don't start by planning to speak at large conferences. Look for user groups with common focus, and you might find attendees with common interest to collaborate. And so we have some links here, but I'd suggest download the presentation after this if you want to find those links. Another area is co-presenting. David?
Yeah, now I'm passionate about co-presenting. I've certainly done enough presenting on my own, but I feel like co-presenting is a great opportunity to collaborate. Not only does it set a good example for the community that you don't have to be in the spotlight, you can share that spotlight, and you can also assist others in that spotlight, which again, we're plugging the buddy system, but we'll talk about it more in a little bit. But you can focus on working with others, and it shows good community spirit. So it really is a great way to be able to do that. Now, the other way that you can contribute is as you refine your session, it's a path to speaking. We talked about this earlier. A lot of events like this will support you in wanting to get more involved in speaking. They specifically look for new presenters and new speakers. And this is a common step. So again, start by trying to do it at user groups within your organization and get involved there. Ask someone to co-present with you because that's going to make it a little easier along the way. Could also get into writing and editing.
Yes, so one of the areas where you can contribute is the community docs at Microsoft. So the URL is here, docsmicrosoft.com, Microsoft 365 community. This is where you can actually, if let's face it, the Microsoft documentation is not always realistic, right? It's not always representing the perspective of someone who's actually been using the product in the real world. And the community docs is exactly the place for you to be able to share that perspective, that point of view, where you've been using the product and you can talk about real life scenarios and real life patterns. I know it sounds weird because it's a Microsoft documentation and you might think that only Microsoft people get to contribute to it, but you can absolutely contribute to it. The other thing is we've talked about writing blogs, and I talked about how I started writing blogs with notes to myself. But when I first started even thinking about blogging, I was talking to a friend. I was like, I have nothing to contribute. And he said, what are you talking about? You've probably forgotten more about SharePoint than most people know about SharePoint. And he said, you always consider that everyone's at the same level as you, but and maybe there's lots of people that know as much as you, but what about people who are just starting today or tomorrow? They're just starting learning SharePoint because their boss told them they have to start using SharePoint. Their perspective is very different. And so any kind of insights, anything that you've learned that you can share, write it not from your perspective. Like, don't write it for someone who's at the same level as you, who's been doing SharePoint for 20 years. Write it for someone who's starting SharePoint today and tomorrow. And that's actually what I started doing. Again, writing it as note to self, writing it as, hey, you might find this useful because I struggle with this. And I never position it in a way that this is the best way to do it or this is the only way. It's always my way of doing it. So that way people can't take that away from you. And the other way that you can contribute is develop and bug fixes, right? So we have some, if you go to aka.ms/m365pmp, this is where you'll see all the patterns and practices repositories where you can help. So there's pretty much every single thing that we do in the patterns and practices team is open source, whether they're samples or they're PMP.js, the CLI, the reusable controls. If you want to flex some coding muscles, you can definitely go help and contribute. Look for tags that are called good first issues or help wanted if you don't know where to get started, but that's definitely where you can certainly help there.
Once upon a time, there was a lonely boy named David. He had limited experience and thought he couldn't contribute. Well, don't ever let this type of feeling prevent you from getting more involved. Teamwork is the way in which you can get more involved. Don't be afraid. Everyone in this community is very collaborative and loves to work with others. Look for opportunities to work with others who have skills that actually accentuate what you offer. The three of us, April, Hugo, and myself, have done sessions together or demos together or worked on projects together where each of us brought something different and we taught one another. So don't feel like if you're limited in one area, you can't actually ever learn in that area. Don't be afraid to ask others. Seek out those who have complementary superpowers and ask them to join forces. Now, you might feel like this is all overwhelming. There's a lot of things in which you don't know and how to navigate the waters. Sharing is Caring is an initiative that we actually provide within the Patterns and Practices initiative. Excuse me, it's a program that we offer within the Patterns and Practices initiative, where we provide you hands-on, safe space, inclusive opportunities to learn how to do things like navigate GitHub. How do you do your first pull request? How do I submit brand new documentation that can live at docs.microsoft.com? How can I be a better presenter? How can I use all the SPFX samples? Because when I download them, they seem to break. Is it them? Is it me? Right? I don't know. These are sessions that are going to provide you answers to all those questions. They're not recorded. They're absolutely free. They're available every month. They're hands-on, and we would love to see you there. We've seen a progress from those that have started attending, got more involved, and became MVPs. So the results absolutely are there. Please don't hesitate to join aka.ms/sharing is caring.
All right, so let's talk about the boons. And I can't even remember why we called it the boons, but the benefits that you get from contributing to the community. I think it started as a joke, but we kept it in the presentation. So one of the benefits is new friends. And
yeah.
One of my best friends, David.
Yeah, absolutely. You get new friends when you work together. You make new friends, and this transcends just tech. You're going to find, especially as the world is starting to get back open back up, we're going to find ourselves at more live events, hopefully soon, in person, in real life, if that still exists. And you're going to find that these friendships go beyond just working together on a project. So, this is I can't speak enough about the value that is brought and the positivity that is brought to my life in making new friends, such as Hugo and April and Emily and Louisa. All these amazing people are now part of my life and will forever be because of the community, but also it's a benefit that came by way of the community. It goes beyond the community. We'll be friends forever, no matter what. And so definitely can't speak enough about that. Another benefit is expanded knowledge.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite benefits. Well, obviously new friends is great, but no one can know everything, especially with the pace of change with Microsoft 365. Stuff's always changing. So being involved in the community, not only can you learn more yourself from people's experiences and all of that, but you can naturally curate like a list of friends and colleagues in the community that are experts in certain areas, so that if you get stuck and you have a question, like I know now if I need to have a SharePoint framework question, I can go to David or Hugo. Those are my experts, friends that I know from the community that can help answer that. So it's a really great way to expand your knowledge and your network of people that can help.
And ultimately, we all remember that scene in the Mask with Jim Carrey where he pretends to win an Oscar. You love me. You really love me. We all like recognition, right? And honestly, recognition for what we do in the community is significant, and it can actually lead to getting better jobs. Getting better recognition in the community can lead to getting that promotion or learning more than you thought you could ever learn before. So definitely don't hesitate, or don't think that this is not something that you should get or will get. You can't promise that you're going to get chased around by paparazzi if that's what you want, or you're going to get a watch deal or anything like that as a sponsor. But recognition is definitely there, and there's a number of initiatives in place that's going to be debuting soon. In fact, specifically under the Patterns of Practice initiative, that's going to provide even bigger and better recognition. So we're excited to release that here soon. But ultimately, we want to know, what is your origin story?
Yeah, today we discussed how everyone has their superpowers and how everyone can bring value to the community in their own unique ways. We talked about the villains that prevent you from contributing and how to fight them. And fighting the villains alone can sometimes be hard, and sometimes there's battles that only you can fight. But don't forget that there's a community of people that are out there, and they want to see you succeed, and that together we're much stronger than alone. So go out there, find out your superpower, and start contributing. Find your unique and beautiful origin story and share them with us, right? So go out there, use the hashtag M365OriginStory to share your origin stories. And we can't wait to see what you're capable of. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thanks, everyone.